too. Hello?
Here we go.
Awesome.
Shall we sit or stand?
Sorry, guys. Just had one of the dumbest interviews of my life with the BBC. I actually have
Fake
to say,
news.
It was exceptionally. It had to have been one of the worst interviews I've ever sat through. I mean, I don't even know what they're doing. I thought CNN was bad. BBC, run for their money.
Are they neutral, Candace?
Are they neutral? I'm like, not a single question was about what we're doing here. They're just trying to go for their narrative. They've already are ready to put out articles that are against us, and we haven't even spoken yet. And she's like, what makes you think that our news organizations are biased? And I said, have you read? We haven't even gotten here yet. We haven't sat down. We haven't said a single word. Have you read a single positive piece of news about TPUK? What we saw when we said we were launching, the idea of coming and speaking on college campuses about conservative principles, the headlines were unbelievable. Worse than I thought it actually was here in the UK.
Before we even had an opportunity to talk about our core values or our plans, and I mean, look, Candace is a role model for us all for how she punches back twice as hard against the media. And I think we're starting to see that really across the States and here in the UK. And you know, whether it be CNN or BBC or many of these outlets, they engage in what we call destination journalism. So they have the headline in mind before they even start asking the questions. Right. So the headline they wanted to make for Candace Owens tonight was climate change denying, Trump sycophant, American activist comes to UK to tell them how to live their life. And she said, no, I'm not going to give you that headline. We're going to have a conversation.
Why are you asking me about climate change? What about Turning Point is about climate change? There's 8 million hits if you Google my name. We've done 200 hours of college campuses
Just
over the last year.
200 hours
and we've never
once
content. Spoken about climate change. Why are you spending 20 minutes asking me about my opinion on climate change? Oh, I know, because you're fake news. You're here to say things about us that aren't true. You're here to try to smear everybody as racist and sexist and misogynist and climate change deniers. And I think she's still in the room, so I mean, she's a nice girl. I think she's a nice girl.
Look, and this is so important because the media is supposed to be the gatekeepers of fairness. They're supposed to go and ask objective questions and allow dialogue, debate, and discussion so that all viewpoints can be appropriately heard. And we find far too often, especially in the States and here in the UK, where they want to steer people in a certain direction. They want to frame things inappropriately. They want to have a narrative that is fit in. And really, I think what our president in the States has done such a great job of is identifying how the media has been used as a weapon of the far left, and not being afraid to go around the media using social networks, Twitter, so on and so forth, and really get the facts out there.
I have no respect for the media. I'm just going to be honest with you. And then she asked me at one point, then her second question, first she talks about climate change. Second one is, how could you support a president that had this call to action to grab women by the pussy? I mean, that's not even true. It's not what he said. She took a piece of what he said. So she plagiarized CNN, which is already bad homework, right? The last people you should be plagiarizing is CNN.
Fake news.
So, yeah. And I said, have you done a single piece of work? Did you have a direct quote that Trump said, a direct quote that I said? Nope, fumbles through 10 pieces of paper, doesn't have a single quote. Journalists are not in the business of telling the truth, and that is why it is so important that we have organizations like this that are popping up.
Well, and I just want to say first and foremost, thank you to the Turning Point UK team that put on all these amazing events this week and tonight. Ali, Chloe, all you guys, thank you guys so much. Give it up for the Turning Point UK team. They've done an amazing job.
All right. Now that I've gotten through, the interview was just unbelievable. But we should talk a little about what Turning Point UK actually is, what Turning Point USA is, how we got started, why we're here, and what we're going to do.
We're just so honored to be here. So 6.5 years ago, I started Turning Point USA from my parents' garage, as Ali said, around 3 core ideas. The idea that the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, was the greatest political document ever written, that free market capitalism is the greatest and the most moral economic system ever discovered. We'll get into that in a little bit. And American exceptionalism, that America is the greatest country in the history of the world. We mean no offense when we say that. We can have a discussion and debate and dialogue, but we broadened it a little bit in saying that Western civilization is the greatest experiment that humans have ever engaged in. And the success has just been amazing and overwhelming. And a year and a half ago, something truly extraordinary happened. I met Candace Owens at an event in Palm Beach, Florida, and everything really changed for the better. And after 5 minutes of talking to her, I offered her a job right on the spot, because I saw her enthusiasm, her charisma, her intellect, her capacity to be able to change minds, and her willingness to fight, which you don't find that combination all the time. And over the last year and a half, we've kind of taken the states by storm, where we're now on 1,400 high school and college campuses across the country. As Candace mentioned, we did over 200 hours of live programming together last year. Think about that, 200 hours of live programming. And we started to get lots of inquiries from friends here in the UK that said, please, can you help bring your enthusiasm, the energy, and your proven platform to the UK? And we said, absolutely. And Candace got a nice side deal out of the whole thing, too, which you could talk about, which was, you want to, if you know what I mean.
Oh, like I'm getting married to a Brit now.
Exactly. It was a minor detail. Where's George? George is here somewhere. So, but we're so honored to be here. We believe in a couple core things. We believe student activism is critical, and that the left cannot have a monopoly on the student's mind, if you will. That students should not be socialists, and not all students have to be socialists. And we believe that the ideas embedded in the Democrat Socialist wing in America, but also the Labour Party here in the UK, are dangerous to society. They are corrosive to the bedrock of a functioning economy and a culture, and we stand strongly, really, and definitively against these ideas, and also offer market-based solutions around these four core ideas.
That's correct, and we talk a lot about oppression and the oppression Olympics that seems to be going on, where people compete to be more oppressed because they think that there's some virtue in oppression, like, oh, well, you're a man, but I'm a woman, so I'm more oppressed. Oh, but I'm a black woman, so I'm more oppressed. So I'm a black disabled woman, so I'm more oppressed. I'm a black gay disabled woman, so I'm the most oppressed, and everyone's very excited because they're oppressed. And this is something that I started to observe within my own country, and I wasn't paying attention to politics whatsoever. It's actually something that I fight for in America, is that Black America is not paying attention to politics enough, and when we do, we are convinced that we have to be Democrats, you guys, Labour Party. We're convinced that we have to be leftists, and it's because they care about us. They really care about the little guy. This is sort of the belief. And when Donald Trump came down the escalator and announced that he was running for president of the United States, I actually wasn't a supporter of his. I thought to myself, oh no, I was actually kind of pro-Bernie. I'm embarrassed to say that. But then something remarkable happened where this man, Donald Trump, was loved by our media. Just so you guys understand, I grew up listening to hip-hop music. Every Jay-Z and Beyonce song and Puff Daddy, Diddy, whatever he's calling himself these days, it was all about Trump, Trump, Trump. Beyonce wanted to be sipping poolside at Mar-a-Lago, which is the exclusive club that he owns down in Palm Beach. And even Barack Obama said that the American dream is to be like Trump. And the very second that he said that he was going to run for president of the United States, our media did a 180. And despite the fact that he had this show and he was throwing parties all the time and celebrities loved him, they wanted to convince us that he was a racist, a sexist, a misogynist, and the media obsessed over this. Now, despite the fact that I didn't support him initially when he came down the escalator, it forced me to sort of ask myself a very serious question. And that question was, is it possible that racism is now being used as a theme to turn black people into single-issue voters? We're going to scare you. We're going to scare you every time there's an election cycle and make you think that if you don't vote for us, you're going to be sent backwards. The same can be said of the feminist movement. Another BBC question she asked me, you say you're not a feminist. No, I am not a feminist, okay? I'm proudly not a feminist. These sort of radicalize it, and they go after men, and they're trying to divide us, and you should be upset and you should be oppressed. If you're short, it's because of tall people. If you're poor, it's because of rich people. If you're black, it's because of white people. Right? And I just thought to myself, I'd like to present maybe a different debate, a different discussion in my community. And I launched a YouTube channel, just a different type of media. And I started talking to the black community about different things, like, do we really just want to perpetually be victims? Is this really all what it's about, finding ways to be victims? And the left lost their mind, and I can say for the first time in my life, I saw real racism. I saw what it means if you have the authority to say that I'm not going to allow you to use bits and pieces of who I am, whether that be black, whether that be woman, whether that be straight, whether that be gay, to confine me to what I must think. And if you've read any of these hits about me and these pieces about me, it's nasty and it's vicious, and it really makes you question, are you the party that champions women, Labour Party? Are you the party that champions black people, Democrat Party? Are you the party that uses them so that you can assert power for yourself?
That's exactly right. And never forget, the left needs people to need them. They never want to offer opportunity to people that are underprivileged. They want to offer them just enough stuff to keep them in their current status quo so they can turn them into a perpetual voting machine so that they can maintain political power. The left, whether it be in the UK, whether it be in Asia, anywhere across the world, the commonality of the left is they want to destroy core cultural institutions that work, because out of chaos, then you can assume authoritarianism, no matter where it is across the world. And this is done time and time again. We see it in the States. The left destroys everything it touches, and you can see it here in the UK. It is horrifying to me that Jeremy Corbyn has the kind of support that he has here in this great and proud country. It's sick, honestly. It is a disgrace. It is a disgrace. And what Candace talked about, which is so important, is that identity politics is one of the worst ideas that has really permeated throughout Western society, which is, if you look at Charlie, you look at Candace, immediately we're programmed to assume one of us is an oppressor and one of us is oppressed. Immediately, right? That's the way the media tries to paint it, is that you just look at this duo right here, and that's what's called the Oppression Olympics. Being near Olympic Stadium, it's actually quite fitting, by the way, to be able to talk about the Oppression Olympics as Candace talks about. Candace and I don't care about what you look like, where you come from. We care how you act and what you think. And there was a famous individual in the States by the name of Martin Luther King, and many of you probably heard of him. He helped lead the civil rights movement. He said, "I dream of a day where people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character." The left cares much more about the color of your skin than the content of your character. They care much more about how they can subdivide you into political groups to control you. Because that's all the left wants. They want power. They want perpetual power so they can keep themselves in positions of influence, so they can enrich themselves and exert that sort of authority over the modern day citizen and keep poor people permanently poor and keep themselves in power perpetually.
And they're also making it permissible to be outwardly hateful towards straight white men. Like, this is the most bizarre thing that I've watched, honestly. I'm on the sidelines watching this new trend of white guilt, right? Where it's like you have like the white progressives who who are going after the white conservatives by telling them that they should shut up and not speak and not have an opinion because they're white. I don't have a horse in this race. It's white on white crime. But it's bizarre, and this is where we're at, where they feel virtue in hating themselves. Like, I'm a straight white man, but I'm a good one. I walk around with my tail in between my legs. The BBC reporter says to me, I have one of your tweets here. I love when reporters try to surprise me with my own tweets, like I didn't author them, right? And it says that you love masculinity. Yes, I love masculinity. A society needs strong men. I'm not ashamed to say
Amen.
that a society needs strong men.
And feminism has become much more about hating men than empowering women.
100%.
And the commonality of the left is they'll divide and then they can conquer. Black against white, Christian against Jewish, whatever it might be, police versus citizens, men versus women. They want division, because out of division, then it becomes very tribal. In the States, we have an expression, there's a Latin expression that is called e pluribus unum. And people on the center right in the States, and I believe it's very much the same here in the UK, is again, we believe out of many one, that no matter what your differences are, that we can unite together. The Labor and the left, they want to focus on the differences, not on the commonalities. Because again, that is how you get the most amount of power, is you create these tribal groups and you create essentially sectarian politics that has horrible impact. And look, Candace and I, we're really crusading against socialism in the States. And it's horrifying. Just kind of a quick political update in what's going on in the States. Our president is doing unbelievably well. Don't believe any of the media that you read here. He is succeeding on every single frontier. He's delivering on his promises in a way that no American president really has. We have the lowest ever black unemployment, the lowest disabled unemployment, the lowest Hispanic Latino unemployment, the lowest ever Asian unemployment, the lowest black poverty rate, 500% in black-run entrepreneurs, black-run businesses in the States, 3% GDP rate. I'm sure you guys would love a 3% GDP rate recently, right? My goodness. 6 million jobs created since his inauguration. Manufacturing has come back. 500,000 manufacturing jobs have returned to the States since the president was inaugurated. The States were finally energy independent, so we're actually exporting more oil than we're importing, so we don't have to buy oil anymore from the Saudis or any of the Middle Eastern countries that have exploited and really rained terror across the world for so long. We can go on for another hour on how great the States are doing. So don't believe the media on that regard, but there is a rise of socialism happening both all in the Western world, and Candace and I are standing firmly against it.
Right. Ultimately, what we are against is the idea of just growing government as the ultimate solution to everything and all of our problems. And the government gets bigger and bigger, and the individual gets smaller and smaller. And that's really what this uprising, this sort of American revolution, was in the States. That's what the Trump bandwagon was created upon, is realizing that we were actually losing. And there's so much symmetry happening here in the UK, where people are sort of waking up and saying, why do we need two governments? Why more governments? Why do we need to be governed by this many people? And I'm having fun. People are scared. Like, what is the UK going to do if Brexit happens? I'm reading all of the articles. Apparently you guys aren't going to have vegetables, right? Is this a thing now, right? I mean, like, trust me, the articles were very similar. If Trump wins, the sky will fall.
We've read this before.
Right.
They said they're going to have war in North Korea. No, actually, we're closer to peace than ever before. The stock market's going to crash. We've had 99 record highs. It's the highest it's ever been. The economy will tank. We have the best GDP numbers in 60 years. The black community will be in chaos. No, actually, they're doing better than ever before. If the ruling class says you're going to see catastrophe, you know prosperity is around the corner if you do the exact opposite of what they're trying to tell you to do. So Candace, talk a little bit about, this is so important, victim versus victor. We talk about it in the States a lot. I think it's important too.
Right. So where is the BBC lady? Is she here? I mean, really, this is what I would have loved to talk to her about, but she had no interest in it. But what we're really talking about is I've sort of coined the idea of a victor mentality versus a victim mentality. And victim mentality is really plaguing our society. It's telling people, handing them a bunch of excuses before they even try. And that's easy. That's cowardice, right? Life is hard. Life is a series of overcoming. It's not easy. I started my life completely impoverished, a family that didn't have 2 pennies to give me, but I was never told ever in my entire life that I couldn't do something on the basis of my skin. I have a grandfather who is sort of the patriarch of our family, who grew up in the segregated South, and his first job was pulling out tobacco to dry and laying it in an attic when he was 5 years old. And he had the real KKK, not the CNN drumming up a narrative that there's racism in America. The Democrats, is exactly right, but the actual real KKK would shoot bullets into his home growing up. And my grandfather never once had anything angry to say about white people. It was just, this is the time that it was. He worked hard his entire life, and he eventually retired on that same sharecropping farm. He went back and he owns it now. And that is the American dream, right? If you work hard, you can overcome anything that you're going through. So it's weird to me to go into rooms and go into a climate where we have the most privileged people that have ever lived in the history of America claiming that they are more oppressed than their ancestors. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Black Lives Matter, which I'm sure you know that I speak out against because they're statistically and factually wrong about everything. And they're overprivileged Americans. They're morally wrong, they're statistically wrong, and unfortunately for them, they're buying into a media narrative, so I understand where that sentiment comes from if you don't go on a pursuit of facts and logic and you react emotionally. But we have people that believe that they're more oppressed. Charlie and I will go onto college campuses in America. It's my favorite thing to do. And we sit down in a chair, and the first thing I say is, I just want to check what planet we're on. And then they go, okay. And I say, how many of you believe that America today, in 2019, is a more racist country than it was in the 1940s? Half the hands will go up. And I go, okay, so we are on a random planet today, and we're gonna have to fight. But this is really, what we're showing is the relationship that people have with their media, that the media has the ability to completely delude people against reality. I mean, it's an impossible argument to make. You cannot make a sound argument that society is worse off today than we were under Jim Crow in America and segregation in America when there were white-only and black-only fountains. You cannot make that sound argument, and yet people will, because the media is viciously trying to sell this. And I think what we're trying to get to the bottom to is why.
And exactly, what we find on the college campuses is that victimhood is taught as a virtue. And I'm sure you have commonalities. You see this in the UK. I can see it through reading between the lines and all the different, kind of all the different articles written about the Labour Party, is that somehow if you are a victim, for whatever reason you think you're a victim, that is worn as a badge of honor, and they compete of who can be the biggest possible victim. When in reality, the virtue is overcoming whatever victimhood that might be. and the virtue is Candace Owens' story. So actually Western society, and the UK is part of this. I mean, the UK is an unbelievably great country, and you have so much to be proud of, which is why I'm so thrilled, I hope, that you guys get the hell out of the EU and you guys can be a proud country again. Because you guys have an amazing history, and you have so much to be proud of. You brought common law to the world. You guys have been a benevolent country. You have stood against the face of evil time and time again. You have been an entrepreneurial country. You have so much. And that's why Candace and I talk about that there is an appropriate sense of nationalism and patriotic identity that is okay to talk about. But the story of Western society, and Candace Owens really embodies the story of Western society, is what's called the hero's journey, where you start with very little to nothing, and you go through circumstance, you go through adversity, you're able to overcome that adversity, and then you're able to succeed. And the great stories that we all grew up reading, whether it be Lord of the Rings, whether it be Harry Potter, all you know that story, this is the hero's journey. Where you think about it, it's not Harry Potter was, he lived underneath the stairwell and he applied for government programs, went to the local community college, rejected his letter to the School of Hogwarts Witchcraft and Wizardry, went through some sort of medieval dance theory class, and then worked at Starbucks as a barista. No one's going to read that story. Instead, that's what the left is selling us, is this horribly miserable, dwelling in mediocrity vision. What we believe in is no. We believe in the individual. The individual is what built the West. It's not the collective. It's not group identity based on victimhood. Instead, it's the stories that we dreamt growing up, okay? It's the Harry Potter story where you're going to take a big risk. You're going to create a team of people that, the story is obviously all embedded in our consciousness at this point, and then you're able to achieve something bigger than you could have ever imagined. And whatever that might be, whether it be composing a song or building a family or starting a business, that's what makes the West the best. Every other culture that has ever been tried has been about either the empowerment of the elites and the ruling class and the suppression of those that are not at that level, or the absolute continuation of serfdom into perpetuity. And so, unfortunately, there's a real well-funded effort to destroy what made Western civilization the greatest experiment in human history. And it really starts in our universities. If we're very honest about ourselves, the universities, I know in the States, and I don't, what I've been, reading in the UK, it's no different, is where these bad ideas get way too much credibility.
Just how much society has shifted. It's quite alarming to think that it was just a few decades ago that our boys locked arm and stormed D-Day, right? These brave, the average age of D-Day was 22 years old, right? And they knew they were going to die. Those boys knew they were going to die so that they could preserve the freedoms of Western civilization. And today we have people, Labor Party and Democrats, who can't deal with the fact that conservatives want to share ideas on campus. Like, that's it. Like, these men fall apart because Candace Owens is coming to speak about conservative principles. It's pathetic. It really is to me. It's just pathetic. And we need to return back to normalcy and being able to share ideas. Look, we're welcome. We welcome every single person, whether they agree with us, disagree with us. What we always like to do is engage in discussion because we believe in what we're saying. And you can't learn if you're not going to hear the other side or the other position.
And we do want to call up our amazing British influencers and friends. Candace made such an important point, which is in the States, we preserve free speech most of the time at all costs. And I'm very afraid what I'm reading here in the UK. I'm very, very concerned because as soon as you suppress dialogue, the ruling class will always win. And this whole idea that you have to shut up hate speech, the more speech is a solution to hate speech, always. Not having the government to dictate what is hate speech and what isn't. And the United States of America is an amazing example of this, okay? We've had our fair share over the last 100 years of fringe, hateful voices. How do we handle that? We allow more people to speak in unison and to speak louder. And it works because then people will get more engaged and more involved. And I'm reading things, and it's really concerning where people are getting visits from the authorities because they say something that others might disagree with. It's really, really scary stuff, folks. And I'm telling you, if there's one thing that will lead you to that road to serfdom that F.A. Hayek talked about, it's the suppression of speech. Because what comes before speech? It's thought. And if they're able to prevent you from thinking, then the government and the ruling class will win. You can't let that happen.
That's correct. Yeah. Yes. Let's have them up. Where are they? No, I don't know where they are. Chloe and Dominique and Steven.
Let's call you guys up. So part of the Turning Point UK vision is to have amazing voices, young voices that can, talk firsthand about the values we care about. So let's welcome up Chloe, Dominique, and Steven. We'll have a little chat, and then we want to have questions. We have a policy, Candace Owens and I. If you disagree with us, you're allowed to go to the front of the line and ask a question. In fact, we want the disagreement. We come here for the disagreement. We always joke around in the States. I see some MAGA hats in the back. We love the Trump 2072 shirts, but we really want the disagreement. So anyway, let's kick it off. Steven?
So I'm Steven Edgington. I work for Leave Means Leave. So just a little bit about me, first of all. Like Candice, I started off on YouTube. About 4 years ago, I started making YouTube videos. Not about, obviously, what Candice was talking about, but talking about Brexit, the most exciting political opportunity that Britain faces in the 21st century. And it's something that has excited me and millions of young people across Britain. And I started making these YouTube videos, and some of them got hundreds of thousands of views, and people really liked them. And I started doing interviews with politicians and journalists and people like that. And it really grew from there, and then I became a journalist, and now I work for Leave Means Leave, which is a pro-Brexit campaign. And some of you might ask, why do we need a pro-Brexit campaign when we voted in 2016 to leave? Well, the reason is, obviously, next week, MPs are voting in Parliament whether to approve Brexit or not. And it seems to me, and it seems to a lot of people, that MPs are likely to not approve Brexit. So that issue, I see it as it's all about free markets anyway. Brexit is all about free markets because you've got one layer of government in Westminster, and then you've got a supranational level of government in Brussels. And that government in Brussels is not even elected. The president is a bureaucrat. It's like being in China. It's like being in China, where they have a technocracy. You can't even elect the people that are in charge of us and the people that are proposing laws. So that's why so many people need to get involved in Turning Point UK. We need to, look, Brexit is the opportunity that Britain has. It's our Trump. And the establishment in the UK have spent the last 2.5 years trying to prevent Brexit from happening. And last week I wrote an article for The Sun, and the headline was, "We marched against Iraq, we marched against David Cameron's tuition fees, and now it's time to march for Brexit." And my organisation, in a couple of weeks' time, actually next Saturday, are going to be starting a 300-mile march from Sunderland to London to say to the elite that we have to deliver Brexit. It's so important to get this right, because if you don't, then 17.4 million people in the UK are going to be livid. It's time for the youth in Britain to fight back against the establishment, because that's what we've been doing for decades. And for the first time, the youth in Britain seem to be obsessed with bureaucrats in Brussels and seem to be obsessed with the establishment. We need to be rising up against Brussels and Westminster and telling them, no, we've had enough. We want to take back control of our country. And that's why Turning Point is so important, to get young people enthused in Britain against the establishment. Because for the last 20 years, the young people in the UK have been anti-establishment. But what's happened in the last decade? We've become obsessed with politicians like Tony Blair. We've become obsessed with people in Brussels who are making laws on our behalf who we don't even elect. So Turning Point UK is a new movement to get young people involved in politics and to finally say, no, we've had enough. We're not going to let you run our lives. We're not going to let you make our laws. We're finally going to take back control. So, yeah.
Okay, so one of the main questions I get asked is, how can a young black woman be conservative? It's seen as an anathema in the US and the UK. People look at me and they look at me like I've grown 5 heads. And what I say to that is, I say that my upbringing is a massive part of what makes me a conservative. It planted the seed within me in a way, because I come from a single parent household. My dad died when I was younger, so it was my mum's responsibility to look after 2 children that she was left with. And what she did was she created a business. She created a cleaning company, the Pink Ladies Cleaning Company. And the school that she eventually sent me to, that was a really good school. It was quite funny because a lot of the kids that went there, she would actually clean their parents' houses. So I always felt quite out of place there. But the road to being a Conservative wasn't one that was automatic. It wasn't a light bulb moment. I voted for Jeremy Corbyn in 2016. Yep. I was a Labour supporter. I didn't really know anything about politics, but I thought that Labour was the only political home for me, because how could I possibly, as a black woman, support the Conservative Party? It's reserved for rich white men, basically. But then I began to do my research, and that's an important part of what being a Conservative actually is. I started to look at Labour's... I started to look at Labour's policies and realised that they were absolutely nonsensical, economically illiterate, and they seemed more concerned with getting rid of Trident and what's going on everywhere else except the UK. They seem more concerned with being ruled by the EU instead of giving our parliament the power to make our own laws. They seem more concerned with treating patriotism as if it's a dirty word in the UK in 2019, and that's something that I find completely ridiculous. So, when I eventually realised that I just was not passionate about socialism, and in actual fact, I love my country. In actual fact, I do not hate white people. I do not resent white people for things that happened in the past. In actual fact, I'm treated like an equal and an individual in the UK in 2019. And that, for me, was the breakaway from the mental slavery that leftism is. And I've had a lot of hate for this. I've been called an Uncle Tom numerous times, but this just reveals the racism of the left. As a black woman, I can think any way I please, and that is the first part of actually being an individual and actually being free in 2019, being able to think any way you please, because for too long, black people have been expected to think with the left, when in reality, black people socially are very conservative. We do believe in the family, we do believe in working hard, and we do believe in ourselves instead of the government doing everything for us. So that's why I'm very excited to be a part of TPUK, because that's what it stands for. It's a new brand of conservatism for everyone, and it's inclusive, and you know, this is only just the beginning.
Hi, is this one on? It will be, Hello. Hello, there we go. Hi, I'm Chloe, and for the avoidance of any doubt in the audience, I do self-identify as someone who believes very strongly in freedom, and I hope you do too. I work for the Taxpayers Alliance. I campaigned for Brexit, and I write a column. Like Dominique, I get a lot of heat for being a conservative woman. Apparently we're not allowed to have our own political opinions. We've all got to be on the left. And I'm here tonight because I believe very strongly in freedom. Your freedom, my freedom, the freedom of the people that diss us on the internet. I think it's very important. And if you were living in nearly any other society in human history, or many other societies today, you wouldn't be allowed to come in here and debate politics. You just wouldn't be allowed. You wouldn't be free to do so. And so I think it's really important that we stand up for our right to do so, and especially on university campuses, which are supposed to be a place of debate and learning and getting closer to the truth. And I'm concerned that young people are being condescended to and told that, you know, they can't handle hearing two sides of the argument, that they don't have enough resilience to make up their own minds about things. You don't need a safe space. Your mind is your own, and your life is your own. And that is why I completely reject the far left ideologies, because they actually are about owning people. I don't think anybody should be owned by anybody else. I don't think a central bureaucracy should be telling millions of people, here is how to live your life, here is what you should eat, here is what you should do for work. I just disagree with that. I think human beings were born for more than that. And you know, I just think you are individuals. And at the moment, you're not really being treated as individuals by many on the left. They're talking about group identities. They want you to be defined by your group identity. You are not your skin color or your gender or your accent. There's only one thing that defines you in this world, and that is your choices. And we need to choose today to have the courage to say that after everything that our ancestors have been through, our parents, and all of the people that fought for the freedoms that we take for granted today, the least that we can do is to have the courage and stand up and say that we care about these things. In spite of everything they're going to say about you, in spite of all the hate you're going to get, in spite of everything that they say about Dominique, she still has the courage to sit on this stage tonight and say what she believes. So we need to have courage and we need to defend freedom. Thank you.
I will say, I was watching the BBC a couple hours ago. I was so underwhelmed by some of your members of parliament. These three should be in the highest level leadership possible. Way more charisma and 100 times more courage than some people that are allegedly representing you. So let's do questions. What do we think? I think that's why we're here, right? So I don't know the process that we're doing it. The great Ollie is going to figure that out. We'll just have them stand and ask a question. Is that okay? Okay, I saw your hand go up first. Yeah. We have a mic? George, okay.
Hello?
Great.
Hello?
And say who your question is for, or it can just be a jump ball.
It's for all of you. You were saying you like difficult questions, so I'm going to start with a difficult question. You've got Taxpayers Allowance up there, who are very well known in Britain for the fact that they're very opaque about who pays for them. They have the lowest possible funding transparency rating. And it seems to be the case for Turning Point 2. Can anyone tell me who finances Turning Point UK? And while you're here, Chloe, who finances the Taxpayers Alliance? And because you style yourselves as a grassroots organisation, if you're not willing to say that, then how do people know you're not being kind of led in your views by corporate donors?
Yeah, please. Yeah, this is a UK thing.
Sure. So I get this question a lot, and I think what's really at the heart of it is you want to know if I believe what I'm saying or if some rich white men are telling me what to say. That's what it is, isn't it? It's 2019, and you don't think a grown woman can have their own political opinions. Why are you? This is what the question's all about, right?
Why?
You want to say that we don't really believe in this stuff.
We are.
Okay, well, I'm actually going to interject. Hi, I'm George Farmer. I'm the chairman of Turning Point UK. And I just want to talk about the funding situation, because actually there's so many questions on the internet about who funds you, right? Generic NPC comment, who funds you, right? I can tell you for a fact, okay, if there's some secret dark money out there, please come and have a chat with me, because we are desperately short of funds, okay? I will tell you this now, that no pressure group, no think tank, nobody, okay, on the left or the right, if you're not a political party in the UK, discloses their funders, right? Nobody, right? Momentum, who funds Momentum? Right, let's talk about that. John Lansman, who funds Momentum? Okay, nobody talks about who funds the left, okay? Who funded Jeremy Corbyn's leadership campaign? That's a really good question, and there's some really interesting people out there who funded his campaign, right? And we can talk about that all night long. Okay, so the question about who funds Turning Point UK, I can tell you it's UK donors, right, who are businessmen who don't want to have their names disclosed, right? I gave money to the Tories. I was vilified for giving money to the Tories. Everyone who gives money to the Tories is absolutely crucified, right? Because you're suddenly a Tory donor and everyone hates you, right? It's a disgrace. If you give money, the unions put a check for Labour through the front door of Labour for £12 million on January the 1st. It's a disgrace, okay? Nobody goes after the unions. Nobody goes after Labour, okay? Who funds us? The UK donors fund us, and they're just businessmen who want to keep their names out of politics. It's a very simple answer, okay? That's the end of it.
I want to, George, you are so correct. Never forget, one of the key tactics the left uses is intimidation, harassment, mob tactics, and boycotts. They want nothing more than the disclosure of patriots, as we call them in the States, that want to defend their country so that they can boycott their businesses, that they can have mobs go into their restaurants, and that they can orchestrate any sort of divestment tactics against people that they disagree with. And you know what?
True.
If you want to see who funds Turning Point USA, we disclose many of our donors on our website in the States. We're funded by over 30,000 grassroots donors across the United States, and we're so happy to see the same type of model happen here in the UK. Great answer, George. Thank you so much.
That'd be great.
So the future. Hello. Oh, So in the future, regarding the global economy in general, we're going to see massive changes. Any one of you guys want to come up with an answer? What do you think is going to happen in the next 10 years in the labour market? Just in the global labour market. Any one of you guys?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So, I mean, the international economy, as you say, is going through massive changes at the moment. We're going through a period of massive slow growth, apart from in one particular Western country, which Charlie mentioned earlier. Trump's 3% is just phenomenal. Obviously, we're looking in the UK, we want the exact same thing from Brexit, but for example, in the European Union, growth is very, very slow at the moment, and Eurozone growth is very, very slow. But at the same time, in the UK, we're growing faster than them. We have the lowest unemployment in over 40 years. But in the next 10 years, as I see the global economy changing, you've got to look at different areas of the global economy. So, for example, in Asia, yes, there's going to be massive amounts of growth in developing markets, India, China, places like that. And that's where the UK really needs to, and the US, really needs to hone in on and make new relationships around the world. And that's what Brexit's all about. It's about engaging in new economies, engaging in developing markets. The European Union is so protectionist that it will not let us engage with those economies.
I fully agree. My question is that in the next decade or two, we're going to see massive changes in just the way our economy works in general. We're talking about AI, we're talking about robots. How on earth are you going to be able to sell free markets and limited government to people if worst case scenario, 50 to 60% of people, these are, I'm asking this question to anyone.
Sure. So the same question was posed in 1910 when people said, what's going to happen when the rickshaws go out of business, when all the cars hit the streets? Yeah. The same question was posed in 1918 when people said, what's going to happen to all the street lighters?
Right, when they got rid of gasoline and kerosene lighting, and they said, no, electricity is way too forward. So, I mean, the world
I would agree with you. Yeah. I would agree with you on this aspect. However, the one thing that, and I've heard this argument before, the reason why I disagree with you, with everyone on this aspect, is because that argument is based on technology during that period of time. For example,
this argument is based on technology during this point in time.
The point I'm trying to make is this: that when people use that argument, society's completely changed, and artificial intelligence wasn't even a thing.
Electricity wasn't a thing.
So
it was all gasoline. They thought the whole world was going to collapse and the economy was going to tank.
I don't think the economy is going to tank or anything like that. But what I'm worried about is that remember, I'm on your side on this one. So
yeah, I'm just saying worry is a misuse of imagination. These things tend to correct themselves, and that's what history has shown over and over again. Markets work.
Markets work.
What do you think is going to happen?
So my worry is that my worry is basically fascists and communists basically controlling the debate and us being left in the wilderness. That's my worry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fair enough.
Disagreements, please. We got a disagreement to the left.
Ironic.
Not sure if couple are left wing at least. So my disagreement is about open borders. Myself, I'm a libertarian capitalist free markets. What is the question or what is the argument for you to try to individualize people and not treat them according to a group identity when you're explicitly qualifying them according to a nationality? So you think that discriminating people according to race or ethnicity or your virtues or your values or specific things, it's entirely wrong, but you think it's correct to discriminate them according to a specific nationality, a visa, a green card, a paper, and to exclude half of the world for a better opportunity in raising their standards by living and emigrating somewhere else abroad.
Can I ask you a question? Do you believe in national identity?
No, I oppose. Do I believe that it exists? Yes. Do I oppose it? Yes.
So do you believe there's a difference between the set of laws in the United States or UK and Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
So there is a difference between national identity. Therefore, some countries have better ideas and some countries have worse ideas?
Is the culture monolithic or no? It is not. So those people from Saudi Arabia, when they migrate here to the UK,
right.
Okay, but they believe gays.
Sorry
to cut you off, but they believe gays should be thrown off of buildings, right?
No.
So, what do you mean? No. Yes, they do.
So, and that is wrong.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. They execute homosexuals in Saudi Arabia.
I do agree, and you're correct in your analysis. Why is it wrong to immigrate a group of people from Saudi Arabia into the United Kingdom?
Because you'll have 150 million people at the doorstep of the United States yesterday because beacons of freedom must, the reason is, look, you must have sensible immigration policy, or else in the
You
United
think that the government sucks for everything, but you believe that the central planified government immigration is
Hold
good.
on.
It's
Hold
bad
on.
for
Hold on.
commerce,
First off,
it's bad
slow
for
down.
everything,
Slow
but
down.
it's good
We're
for
not in a rush
immigration.
tonight. Slow down. Take a deep breath, okay? I'm going to answer what you're saying, okay? The idea that you just want to have open borders where you just acknowledge the first thing that I said, which is that, yes, in Saudi Arabia, they believe women should be covered from head to toe. They just got the right to drive. They have to have, they can't vote, right? You have to have a male signature to enter in and out in certain places. You can't leave the country without a guardian, right?
The description of a problem is
That's
not
it's a yes or no
solution.
question.
Yes.
It's a yes or no question. We're getting
Describing
there.
a problem does not justify
I haven't. I
solution.
didn't give you a solution, so I don't know why you're cutting me off. We're having a discussion. We're not in a race. A race. Take a deep breath. So you agree with that? All that's a fact of what's going on in Saudi
That is a
Arabia.
fact. That is
At the
correct.
same time, you believe that in our country, which we believe in none of that in Western civilization, that I would not be able to wear this. I actually would not be able to speak here tonight if I was in Saudi Arabia. Okay, but you are now saying that in America we should open our borders and let people that have that belief, have that archaic belief, flood into our country, which is we have a democracy, so they would be able to then vote laws, right, into place. You think that we should allow that, and we should ignore the fact that everything that they want is against our civilization and what we believe.
Because you're assuming that people have a monolithic, unitarian view, and that person has only suffered to statism and Islamism and negative communities and lack of
You're
freedom
saying
of
a bunch of
independence
words,
are
but
not
you're
gonna
not-
have the same reasoning
Can I ask
in
a
another
question
one.
of you? How many refugees do you have in your apartment?
How many immigrants do you have working in your company?
We're against
Well,
it.
actually,
We're against it. We
have lots
believe in
of immigrants,
borders.
But you're a hypocrite. Why don't you
We're
bring a lot of
ideologically
refugees?
consistent.
You want to bring in the world's problems, bring them into Western society. Bring in
that's not
Yemenis
what's wrong.
refugees. Here's the problem. You want open borders until it might affect your lifestyle.
No, I want open borders because it capitalistically, for the economy, for the free markets, it creates a new class of group of people whose families are going to be better in the second generation. Herself, she changed her personality from being a labor voter into a conservative.
I was never in a Labor Party. I'm me.
Not you, the other lady.
Oh, okay.
The lady that is next to you. People can change their behavior, their attitudes, their skills, their values through the presentation of new and better ideas. Why not give them, everyone, a chance?
Why don't
from
they do it in
Saudi
their own
Arabia?
country?
Because it's impossible to be the opposition in Saudi Arabia. They kill you, they murder you, they attack you. They're
there's
living in Honduras.
So
in
national
Venezuela.
identity matters. Ideas matter.
Ideas
Therefore,
matter, not nationality.
national identity is embedded in ideas. All men are created equal. All cultures are not created equal.
The culture is not it's not an intrinsic value of herself. Individuals can have multiple cultures, and those cultures would be better reflected within a free market of ideas, of people,
We have
and
that
of everything.
here now. If you have limitless immigration, you would have 100 million people in the UK and the US, which first of all would be a drain on natural resources, public utilities. What you're proposing is
That's welfare state. Eliminate
So
it.
radical.
What you're proposing is almost more unrealistic than the utopianism of Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah,
I just
it's
have to
really
say.
radical.
I'm a very capitalistic former CEO of 3 companies, blockchain and Bitcoin entrepreneur.
You
That's
got a
not
lot of
capital.
money,
Lot of
man. You
lectures.
should bring in 10 Yemenis refugees from the Yemeni civil war.
I-
You got money, do
No,
it.
It's not about funding some of the. You're confusing welfare state against other people. You say
No,
how
the
many
point
people
is
do you
you're a
have in your house?
hypocrite,
That's
is the point.
illogical. That's absolutely illogical. Charlie, how can you say those kind of
Because
things?
I live the
I
very
grew up in
ideas that
there.
I espouse. You don't.
Of course I do. I'm
Yeah,
a
how many
capitalist.
refugees have you brought to the UK?
How many immigrants are you having in your
I
own
want
company?
controlled immigration. You
I
don't.
don't want
I live
controlled
everything I
immigration.
believe. You don't.
Centralized. You think that government sucks
Next
for
question
everything,
now.
but not for
I
immigration.
am not an anarchist. You
Neither
are
am
an
I.
unrealistic, anarchist, utopian.
I am a capitalist.
It's
I give
unrealistic.
lectures in
That
the
lives
Institute
in
of
a
Economic
It's
Affairs.
unrealistic if you have no
I'm a
control.
Hayekian.
If you have no control over your borders and you can't control the flow of people that are coming into a single country, you've
That's
got to
great.
think about how big the UK actually is. We're already struggling to house people as it is.
The director of the
Immigration
Institute
has
of Economic
contributed
Affairs thinks
to
that you can bring
largely
400
to
million
our
people
growth
into
in
How's that
UK.
working in Germany, by the way? Is it working great in Germany?
I think it will.
You
yes.
think it's working well in
Yeah.
Germany?
I think that immigrating 1 million Syrian
How's
refugees
it
into
working?
Germany is
How about
positive.
Sweden?
Germany is one of the rape capitals of Europe. You've seen it in Sweden as well. When you don't control your borders, bad things happen. It doesn't work in Germany. People want Merkel to go. People didn't like Merkel. They don't want her.
Advocating for the majority is not a solution. Not because 99% of the people
That's
want
not
something or against
democracy.
it. It does not make it correct.
Can you give me an example where limitless immigration has worked?
Sure.
No, of course not.
Well, Liberland.
You live in utopianism.
I'm trying.
Next.
You are anti-capitalist.
Next.
Thank you for being wrong tonight. We appreciate it.
No need to shout at him. He was just saying his piece.
Disagreements? That's fine. Disagreement? Oh, then sorry. Disagreement?
Hi there, it's a pleasure to get the chance to ask you a question. So Turning Point USA is very, very pro-Trump. And I just wanted to ask you a question with regards to Trump and his popularity.
Sure.
So a lot of what made Trump popular is how he's appealed to certain demographics who feel that their jobs are being taken away. So Trump's very anti-globalist in that way. My criticism of that would be, and this is based off me trying to understand more free market capitalism myself in the past 6 months, is it while Trump might be doing very, very well for the economy at the moment, are his policy decisions in terms of protecting jobs and having trade wars with other countries, is that not ultimately going to have a negative effect on Americans further down the lines, in such that, so the argument that Thomas Sowell might make is that with greater globalism, you have the opportunity with lower tariffs to make sure that the average cost of basic food in shops is lower for the average American, or if there are tariffs on, say, steel, to protect the steel worker jobs of Americans in the United States, is that not going to have a massive impact on, say, the car industry when they're having to pay substantially more for the tariffs? So how do you feel about Trump's policy with regards to what knock-on effect it will have on America in future years?
So one of the biggest misnomers is the idea that Trump has started trade wars. If you actually look at the deals he signed, he's opened and liberated more markets for U.S. goods to be sold. In order for there to be free trade, you just can't be able to buy what you want to buy. You should also be able to sell your products as well. And one of the biggest ripoffs is what the EU has done to U.S. ability to sell our goods and services into the European Union. You ever notice when you go through Germany or go through France, there's very little American cars? Because that's the tariffs that the EU puts on Ford, Chrysler, Cadillac, so on and so forth. Trump has liberated Southeast Asian markets to buy billions of dollars of coal, billions of dollars of Boeing 737 jets. And the trade deals that he's done has largely been in a negotiation tactic to allow U.S. goods to be sold around the world. This is also why the U.S. is now the largest net exporter of natural gas in the world, and actually exports more oil than we import. So with China, it's a lot more complex. I actually support economic warfare against China. I think China is the great enemy of freedom around the world, and that Russia is a sidebar compared to what China's doing against free people all across the world. We must take them very, very seriously. Anything you want to expound on that? Okay. George, find someone who disagrees with us. Who disagrees? We got one here.
It's more of a criticism than a disagreement.
Great.
You tricked us.
I've from following you, most of you for a while on social media, and I kind of agree with much of what you have to say. My criticism is, if I was to be very unkind, I would say, at the moment, what do you amount to more than basically a sort of protest movement, if I was being very unkind? Because the direction of travel seems to be that the sort of left has overtaken the institutions, so education, politics, and the media. It's quite a long, hard road back from there. So I kind of enjoyed the Brexit vote, and I was quite pro-Trump, but I'm not sure if the overall direction of travel is in the correct direction. So how do we change the direction of travel, and what are you guys doing to do that?
What do you mean by direction of travel?
Well, it's just the left seems to have comprehensively taken over the institutions of education, politics, and the media, and now this identity politics dogma is infecting private corporations. It's a long way back from there. What are you doing? What do we do?
What we're doing right here. I mean, the direction of travel depends on what we all do. There is a silent majority out there who don't actually agree with this identity politics. They don't agree with far-left socialism. They don't agree with some of the madness that they're seeing on their TV screens. But if they speak out, they're often demonized or, targeted. And there's this awful culture at the moment that if you do speak out for these ideas, which are actually quite mainstream ideas, I mean, we're the majority of public opinion that's being treated like a minority and a sideshow on TV. we just need to be braver, because if everyone who really agreed with us told their colleagues tomorrow, everyone would be like, oh wow, yeah, half the country's conservative, or more than half the country's conservative. But nobody wants to say anything because there is this culture of demonization if you come out with these beliefs. So if we start here by doing this, and you all go away and you have great debates with your friends on the left and your family, and you have the courage to say that you do believe in these things, that is the start. That is how this happens. And I really, as well, if there's anyone in the audience who disagrees, I just would like you to speak with us and to hear about what we believe, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about what being a conservative is, what believing in free markets is. Actually, because on our side, we're individualists, so I'm sure there's a lot that we'll disagree on here. There's not a lot of groupthink. So it can be confusing for people on the left to, they find one conservative that says this, and that represents all conservatives. We're individuals, right? But on the whole, we err on the side of individual freedom. And that is something that is worth defending, and we need to all go out and do that tomorrow.
So I think I 100% agree. But to answer your question, which is like, yeah, this feels good, but where is this amounting to, I guess, is what your question is, right? I take exception to saying we're a protest movement. We actually hate protesters. I don't do protesting. I want to engage in dialogue. And for me, obviously, I've been hyper-focused on the Black community. No, I know you weren't like attacking me. I want to differentiate, because it is important to say that we don't protest, right? We don't show up at Brett Kavanaugh's hearing wearing pussy hats and screaming and crying. So for me, I've been hyper-focused in the Black community, and you can say, okay, what are you seeing? I see the Black community as almost an unused currency in America. We are an unused currency in America. We haven't been active in the American dream whatsoever. And to me, imagine what America would be if every single minority no longer allowed the color of their skin to dictate their decisions. If instead of complaining, like Trump, what are we at? 4 million people have dropped off of food stamps. One of my biggest things that I fight for is repairing the nuclear family. Mom, dad, daughter, son having dinner at the table, which is something that the left actively works to destroy when they try to turn women into men and men into women, because that's exactly what they are doing right now, make no mistake, right? This is what radicalized feminism wants to do, is to destroy the family, right? Everything should get better if you can repair those sorts of things. Everything should get better if you can repair the family, if you can reset goals, if you can get people inspired, if you can tell people that maybe as opposed to protesting on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. about how you don't have a job, you should apply to some jobs, right? Because this is what we see in the States. So we're talking about a cultural change, and yes, that does mean that we have to create our own media, and you see that we're doing that, and I think for the first time we're starting to see conservatives come to the forefront of culture, which was a very necessary change, because at least in our country, almost 90% of everything that's on TV is leftist. There is nothing.
Here too. Yeah.
Right, here as well. There is nothing for conservatives. And what we're talking about with better ideas is creating what will in turn be a better economy and a better society with strong men, strong women, and and strong families, and some sanity in the dialogue of debate and political discussion, which disallows the government to come in and be overreaching and remove our freedoms. So I think what you'll see in the next 10 years, shorter than that, my plan is for 2020. I want to see Black Americans break free by 2020. Is a lot of really big changes that are going to save Western civilization.
Okay. Who's got the mic? Got a disagreement? Yes? No?
He's got a great beard.
I'm the chairman of the local Conservative Party right here. So welcome to my part of the world. I don't know if you know that Leighton and Wanstead, which is my constituency, was Winston Churchill's constituency. I'd also like to point out, if you see so many areas here are still empty, this area took the highest bombing of any part of Britain in the Second World War. This was destroyed here, and we rebuilt our country 60, 70 years ago. When I was a student, I mean, this is a long time ago, we had Margaret Thatcher as our leader.
Yeah.
The problem is right now, the leadership of the Conservative Party are not conservative.
Yes.
Here.
They are quite happy to go along with the censorship. They're quite happy to put all these rules. Really, they're just Labour Party light. So the question is, what can you do about it? And let me tell you what we need. I've got a loud enough voice, so I don't know. In my time, on the street canvassing for elections as we do. We just don't have the numbers. If we had the numbers, we could do so much better. So what I'm advising people to do, and I don't know how many of you are in East London or wherever you are, but join up in your local parties and change them, because numbers make a difference. Membership of the Conservative Party is tiny, and it needs your support, and it needs your numbers, and you can change things.
Well said, that man.
That's what the BBC. Don't pay a license. Disconnect the TV. You don't need
Woo. Yes.
And as one last point, I've also got my American fiancé too. Here, right here.
Do you find a disagreement? Disagree? You disagree over here on the far right.
We're not far right, that's the point, yeah, exactly.
Well, it's their far left.
Hi there. So we're a couple of students from the London School of Economics, and I just wanted to ask, so you mentioned, it's
Hey,
actually one
be
of the
nice.
most right-wing universities here in the UK, right? You mentioned that Trump managed to achieve a GDP growth rate of 3%, which I'll admit is quite impressive, but technically that's just 2.6%, and it was higher in 2015 under Obama with 2.9%. Now, and to be entirely precise, that's not even remotely as high as, for example, Cyprus with 3.9, Ireland with 7.8, or Romania, who just finished like a whole season of a social democrat government with 6.9% GDP growth. So I mean, didn't Trump really just bring America to somewhere around the middle of the Western nations?
So first of I don't know, the mics are screwed up. First of all, it's a 3% GDP rate for this last year. It was 3.6% in the third quarter. So look, India's GDP rate is 14% every year because they're a developing country. When you have a $22 trillion GDP and you're still growing at 3%, it's again, I'm saying India, I'm using an example, okay? India's GDP rate year over year is 14%, 15%. When you have a $22 trillion economy and you're still growing at 3%, it's an unbelievable achievement, And so I'm not really sure where your disagreement is, but when you have the world's largest economy, you have 330 million people, and you're still growing at a 3% clip, it's incredible. Here's a fact. Obama's the first president in U.S. history to never achieve 3% GDP growth in a single year. Fact. Trump did it in his first year. So I'm not sure the numbers they're learning at the London School of Economics, but I'm happy to talk about them.
So you have other really big economies, for example, Ireland, that also have a much smaller population, but actually do have a higher... Wait. Before you interrupt.
The GDP of Ireland's like 180 billion.
But they also have a much smaller population, so their GDP per capita is actually higher than that of the United States, and they're still growing at 7.8%. I mean, how are you explaining something like that?
Because Ireland has the lowest corporate tax rate in the world. In a lot of ways, they've had market-based policies that we'll embrace and we appreciate. Okay. And the fact that Donald Trump actually lowered the U.S. corporate tax rate was to stop U.S. companies from domiciling in Ireland, the very country that you're using an example to try to juxtapose against the policies that we embrace.
Take Romania, social democrat government, the last 4 years, 6.9% GDP growth.
Look again, I'm happy to plead ignorance on an Eastern European country as Romania, but I'm guessing that their GDP per capita is a little bit less than that of the United States. There's, in some parts of their country, again, we do have some Romanians that can speak stronger about it, but I will say their immigration policy is actually something I like a lot. So I don't know if you're going to want to defend it. I don't know what your policies on immigration. I don't want to assume that, but they are more closed borders than most European countries.
Am I allowed to go into immigration, or is the mic going to...
I'm just saying, I'm not sure the point you're trying to make, but when the U.S. economy is $22 trillion and still growing at a 3% clip, it's unprecedented. It's unbelievable. And if it was so easy, why didn't Obama...
It's unprecedented. Why is Obama the only president not to achieve 3%?
He didn't.
If it's unprecedented, why did 44 presidents before Trump achieve it?
Wait, hold on. Let me ask you a question. What's your name?
What?
Because you seem really excited, Sparky.
My name
What's
is
your name?
Libtard.
What's your name?
My name is Libtard.
Libtard.
Yeah.
That's good. That'll trend well on Reddit. So I'm going to own you right now. So can you ask me how many years Obama achieved 3% economic growth since you're such a master at the London School of Economics? It rhymes with Eero. Zero.
Shit, dude. No, the question was if it's unprecedented, why is Obama the only president not to achieve it?
It's unprecedented in the modern era. in the last 8 years. You know what's unprecedented?
The modern era.
In the last 8 years. You know what's unprecedented? The lowest ever black unemployment rate, the lowest ever Asian unemployment rate, the lowest ever Hispanic unemployment, the lowest ever disabled unemployment
All
rate.
trends
Paired
that
with 3%
started under
GDP
Obama.
growth, paired with 6 million jobs since its inauguration, 500,000 in manufacturing sector, exporting more oil than we're importing, finally being energy independent, revitalizing the coal industry, the natural gas capital of the world. That's a little unprecedented. Paired with 3% GDP growth. Oh, by the way, the highest ever stock market high, 99 stock market highs, more GDP growth than ever before. Where Obama, we were in misery and mediocrity. Under Trump, we're in a peace and prosperity. You should learn at the London School of Economics. Wouldn't expect it with the Marxists that are teaching every single day.
like fucking Hayek quoted just now.
Don't you love how leftists start swearing and get angry? Did you say effing Hayek? Is that what you said?
Oh, sorry. Is that not the?
No, his name was Friedrich Hayek,
Is
not
that
effing
not
Hayek.
Wrecked. Is that not the civility that you guys that you guys like? Is that what was that too uncivil for you?
But you just started swearing. Yeah, so can you try to disprove me, or are you going to keep on embarrassing yourself?
The point is that the economic crash happened under George W. Bush.
So you want to talk about the economic crisis? Fine. It was caused by the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates after 9/11. It was caused by something called the Community Reinvestment Act of 1988, which was government policy that incentivized government bureaus to give mortgages to people that should never have been involved. I'm sure you know all about credit default swaps because you're at the London East School of Economics.
I also know that act of legislation was passed under Ronald Reagan.
Let me finish. I let you finish, Sparky. Okay? Alan Greenspan said Fannie and Freddie were the sole contributor. You know what Fannie and Freddie Mac is? Fannie and Freddie Mac are quasi-government institutions that were pushing government-backed mortgages and loans, and they were wrapping them in AAA credit ratings. By the way, your credit agencies were in bed with our credit agencies to create one of the biggest government-created artificial bubbles in American history behind garbage. Wall Street got drunk. Washington, D.C. provided the liquor. George W. Bush was anything but a capitalist. We expanded Medicare Part D. He borrowed trillions of dollars. Every single government program grew underneath him. If you're going to try to say George W. Bush was a great capitalist, disagree with you completely. Here's the final point. As government grows, liberty contracts. The 2008 financial crisis was caused by the very government that we detest and that your school seemingly defends.
You know, I could go on and say that all the legislation that you just talked about was proposed under Reagan, but that doesn't matter, I guess, because facts and logic over anything.
It doesn't matter because it's a bad idea. I don't care who proposes it because we stand on principle, not on party. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and stop reading Keynes.
Hi. Look, I love America, but we're in Britain and we're in serious shit here. Trump's doing well. We're fucked. Brexit may not happen. But more importantly, free speech is under attack. Yeah, Tommy Robinson will probably likely go to jail again. And if he does, he won't survive. There's many on the right, many here that belong to a party that we dare not even speak of its name for Britain because we're called fascists and alt-right. What the question is to you guys is there is a movement across the world that is alt-right, right-wing, whatever you want to call it. Should we not all band together and fight the lunatics on the left, the Hillary Clintons, the Corbyns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because we're under attack here. And free speech is effectively over. And Candace, you started off talking about the BBC. 2 weeks ago, there was a march outside the BBC Manchester by Tommy Robinson's Panodrama. He's going to be in prison very soon because of that. They're fighting back and they're fighting dirty. We need to combine, unite, and fight back.
I mean, I think that's a lot of what, I can't comment on that because I didn't know about the BBC March or anything in regards to that, but I mean, that's what we're doing here. I mean, we really do see America as being the last stand of Western civilization, and that it's really important that the UK and America, with everything that's going on, which seems to be in symmetry, that we do help each other out. And the free speech thing, I will tell you, it terrifies me here. I've read articles, and I cannot believe that there are certain things you aren't allowed to critique without having police officers show up at your door online, that you can't, there should be no discussion or topic that is above intellectual debate. We believe that firmly. Every single topic you should be able to intellectually debate. Now, I don't think you guys are completely messed up here. I am actually a little bit more optimistic. I think that what you're seeing is there's a lot of friction because there's about to be they're losing power. I mean, this is what you're seeing. The BBC knows they're powerless. This journalist that sat across from me knew I had zero respect for her. And it's important that you show up and you continue to do things because the power will always be in the hands of the people. I mean, that's just the truth, right? And if the people are willing to stand up and do things like this and start organizations and jump through all of the hoops that Ali had to jump through to make this happen tonight, right? It makes them nervous because here's the thing. We are on the side of truth, right? That's why they want to shut down speech, because they know that when we get up here, we make so much sense that it just might catch fire, right? They've been making no sense whatsoever, and they have to censor speech so people don't start asking questions about why it makes so very little sense. So I would encourage you not to get discouraged, because I think that that's got to be where America was when Charlie first started Turning Point USA. With Obama, people just didn't think there was ever going to be a light, and now we do have Trump, and we have someone that's defending and announcing an executive order for free speech on college campuses, right? It can happen here.
I just want to jump in. When this group launched, it made it very clear that it was against identity politics on the left and on the right. Now, we believe in free markets, free speech, but I will not associate with anyone or support anyone who engages in the identity politics of the right. Nobody should be judged based on their race, their religion, their gender, or protected characteristics. So if anyone was hoping to find a home at Turning Point with that kind of politics, I'm sorry, this isn't for you. We don't believe in the identity politics of the right.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, we have to say, I'm no fan of Tommy Robinson personally. I think his politics, they're not my politics at all. But when people like Tom Watson say that he should be banned from Twitter, I totally disagree with that. I don't think people on the left or the right, whether that's the far right or the far left, should be banned from speaking. There is a problem with free speech in this country. You've got a point there. But as Chloe says, we do not accept the identity politics on the left or the right. And that means we've got to be really clear about the people that are in this movement. We don't believe, I personally don't believe that Tommy Robinson should be part of Turning Point UK, have anything to do with it whatsoever. He is someone who promotes identity politics on the right. So I personally totally disagree with sort of the way that he campaigns. I don't think he should be shut down. I think the solution to hate speech or whatever is more speech. We need more speech, not less speech. Let's not ban these people. Let's debate about the issues and the topics that they're talking about. Let's not shut them down.
And we've seen it work in the States. We've seen voices that can be considered fringe, and you allow more speech, and you have more people be discussed, not lock them up because they're in front of a courthouse filming something, and you guys know the details better than me. If you disagree with someone, that doesn't mean they should go to prison. I mean, that's an unbelievable thing that's happening in this country, which is so sick and so scary. And we have a test case in the United States which works, and we have a marketplace. Well, we have a marketplace for ideas generally. The left is trying to change that. So even though you might disagree with people, fight the death for their right to say it.
Hi guys. My question mainly, I suppose, is related to the American gesture. I noticed one of the major cultural differences between the States and the UK is that the American people seem to naturally have a more sort of questioning attitude to the role of government than we do, especially in the modern day. And one of the problems we tend to be having right here in London now is the phenomenon of knife crime. And it seems that all the solutions that people are bringing up at the moment are what more can the government do, what more can we spend on what government programs can we have. Whereas I tend to think that a lot of these problems seem to happen in the home and that the solution tends to lie at home, but that doesn't seem to be brought up in public debate. Now, my question to you guys is, how can we sort of reclaim that argument, and how can we bring it back to personal responsibility and the role of the family? Cheers.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is exactly like the gun debate in America, and we actually always use you guys as an example of like, well, if you take all the guns and they have knives, then what do? Take all the knives, and then what? You still have a person that is responsible, and if people want to do evil things, they will find a means to do evil things. And I agree with you so much, and every time something bad happens in America and they rush to blame the NRA, they rush to blame the gun, they rush to blame everybody but the person who pulled the trigger. You'll see this over and over again. And I think it is exactly to do with the breakdown of the family unit. I mean, these kids are lost in society now. They don't have fathers at home. I think the one of the major crises, particularly in the Black community, but also in every community in America, is father absence. And seeing the breakdown of the structure of the family unit leads to a breakdown of morals. The moral fibers in society seem to go. And with the birth of the internet, I think it's incredibly hard to be a child or a teenager or an adult growing up, and it makes things a lot easier and things can appeal cooler. But yeah, you're right, the discussion never seems to happen. I try to always have it. I mean, you'll definitely, if you follow me, when terrible things happen in America, I always say the discussion we're never going to hear about is how the families have been destroyed and people don't have that anchor, have that patriarch telling them what's right and what's wrong, and everything else falls apart. And that's purposeful. The left doesn't want it to be about family. They want to always make it seem like this is an opportunity for us to get more power. At the end of the day, they use these opportunities and these tragedies to seize more power for themselves. And it's going to be up to us. It's going to be us, the individuals, the YouTube channels that are popping up to start having a more realistic discussion about where we're at in society, because people do evil things, but it does come down to personal responsibility.
Hi. I just want to make a quick point about Turning Point UK seems to be quite strongly aligning itself to the Conservative Party. I used to be a member of the party, stood as a candidate, but I've long since come to the conclusion that two of the things listed on the board behind you is free speech and limited government. The Conservative Party is actually quite hostile to, especially freedom of speech. We've hit Labour tonight, rightfully so. We've hit Tom Watson for his comments on one of Britain's leading dissident voices at the moment. But what we're missing is that a Conservative cabinet minister is writing to YouTube to have that dissident voice shut down, basically to politically censor him. A year ago today, an American journalist who is very big on YouTube, she found herself put into prison whenever she tried to enter the United Kingdom by a Conservative Home Secretary. A Canadian journalist was actually banned from lifetime entry to the United Kingdom by the same Conservative Home Secretary. The Conservative Party is, at the moment, it is not here for free speech, it is not here for limited governments. It believes in defending the free market with things like price caps, and I'm thinking Turning Point would be better off as a small C rather than a big C aligned movement.
Well, this isn't a Conservative Party front. Like, there are people in the audience who vote Conservative, who agree with them, people that don't. I mean, the important thing about this group is that it isn't aligned. There's already a young Conservative group movement, I think. But the reason this is launched, I think, is because they're not talking about these things. And there needs to be a group talking about these things, because a lot of the young people that I meet that are Conservative do believe in these things. And they come up to me and they say, why is Theresa May so left-wing? And I think she thinks that by moving further to the left, that young people will want to vote Conservative. But I don't think that's correct at all. I think Jeremy Corbyn has a clear vision about how he wants to change the country. And I think young people like change. They want to be part of a change. And so the way to oppose his change message is not, oh, maybe we'll do a little bit of that. It's to have a competing vision. And we want to set out a free market vision for the future of this country. And we really hope that maybe some Conservative MPs might listen. They're not all bad. There are some actual Conservatives in the Conservative Party, but I think the leadership is way too left-wing at the moment. You're right.
Well, let's be really honest about this. The Conservative Party in 2019 is not conservative. Not conservative whatsoever. I mean, we've got a Conservative councillor here who says they're not conservative. Now, that doesn't mean that the Conservative Party can't change. That doesn't mean that, you know, when Theresa May goes, we might have an actual Conservative as leader. I mean, Theresa May is not the Conservative Party. She is Tony Blair 2.0. I think she's even more left-wing than Tony Blair, the Labour Prime Minister for 13 years. I mean, Theresa May's current Conservative Party has undertaken a series of tax rises, not tax cuts. We have the largest tax burden in this country since the 1970s. The largest tax burden since the 1970s. Just think about it. We've got a Conservative Prime Minister who is undertaking more regulation, higher taxes. She's refusing to deliver Brexit. She is not Conservative in the slightest. But that doesn't mean that we can't be part of the Conservative Party and try and change it. That doesn't mean that Turning Point UK shouldn't try and influence Conservative MPs and become Conservative members and say, look, we want to change the leadership. We want to change the cabinet. I mean, we had three Conservative MPs join a new independent group in Parliament a few weeks ago. I think maybe a few more Conservative MPs needs to join them, because at the moment, Conservative Party is not Conservative. Well, exactly.
And I'll tell you a funny anecdote. I was on a panel with a Conservative MP who is now an independent MP, and we were talking about the cost of living. And I said, you know what, if you want to help people with the cost of living, why don't you just take less money away from them? Stop taxing them so much. Let them keep more of their wage. And she laughed at me, and then proceeded to say, I'm that funny kind of conservative, that different kind of conservative, that believes in higher taxes. What? So, yeah, we're in real trouble with the Conservative Party at the moment.
That's it. The only way you can get through to them is by stop voting for them so tribally. Stop voting for Labour and Conservative.
Yeah, but then you let Labour in, and Labour would be even worse for the country.
No, but the problem is this: if the Conservative Party knows in certain parts of the country they will vote for a dead horse if it has a Conservative bloody badge on, that
I would vote for a dead horse over George.
Yeah, that's the issue we have. Politics at the moment is so desperate.
Okay, we're gonna take another question over here. Sorry, we need to go around. This lady's been waiting very patiently.
Hi, I have a question on the effectiveness of the war. So I want to understand how it's being addressed, the immigration issues. So, for example, the overstaying immigrants that are overstaying in the USA is like is a majority that's staying have their visas expires at staying there. So, can the war address this issue? Second question is, if the war is so important in, let's say, controlling the drugs trafficking and child sex trafficking, as you have previously mentioned, why are we pushing it now? Why haven't we pushed this earlier? And third question, a bit outside of the context I just mentioned. So Justice Smollett, he could be facing 64 years in jail. He could be facing up to 64 years in jail for something that he basically hasn't murdered anyone. Is this too severe for his punishment? And
No.
And should okay. I mean, that's I would like to understand you to elaborate on that further.
Right.
That's
So
okay.
Jesse Smollett tried to launch a race war. So I think that the what they're offering actually does fit. The punishment would fit the crime. What he did was despicable. Obviously, you know what kind of an environment we're facing in America right now. And just so you know, the only hate crimes that are happening in America are happening against people that support the president, where people are getting punched in the face. There's so much violence right now in America that CNN and the BBC will never show you that happens towards Trump supporters. And it's acceptable. I'm so happy that kid, if you guys are following the coveting Catholic kid, is suing CNN for $250 million. And the Washington Post. But that's separate. So you're talking about the wall, and just so you know, it never got covered, but Barack Obama also said that there was a huge issue at the border and that it was an emergency and that we needed to somehow figure out a way to get it under control, as did Clinton, as did Clinton before him. So the only time you're hearing about the conversation is because Trump is in office and they want to make everything a bigger deal because Trump is in office. We do need the wall. It is a matter of national security. For me, I'm pro-wall because I'm pro-Black America, and the group that gets negatively impacted the most by illegal immigration is Black American men between the ages of 18 and 22 who are forced to compete with them for jobs, lower wages. So if you don't think that Black men should work for below the minimum wage, then you would be pro-wall. One of the worst things ever is trying to make us feel guilty like it's a diversity problem. We don't have a diversity problem when over 50% of the immigrants that we take in are coming in from Mexico. That's not making America diverse, that's making America Mexico, okay? I'd like to have, I'd like to see a policy, a merit-based system where we go over to Africa maybe. We only take 2 to 4% of immigrants from Africa every year. You wanna see some diversity? Let's go to Africa, a merit-based system of people that wanna be doctors and lawyers and are staying in school and will never have an opportunity to come into our country because people are geographically predisposed and want to hop over the border and disrespect our legislation. I am the most pro-wall woman that you will find in America. And then to your earlier point of you asking, you asked is it a problem, or what was your first question? The overstaying the visa, yeah, obviously the wall is not going to help for people that are already in America. I mean, I think we understand that. But I would be very happy if we found out a way to get them all back into their country. Trump is he's actually a little more lenient. He offered them a deal and the DACA deal and was going to say, okay, well, you guys are already here. We're going to help you. I'm even against that. I think if you disrespect our law, you need to get sent home, period.
Okay, we're gonna take one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, folks.
So my question is for Candace and Charlie. Someone already asked the question I originally intended to ask, so instead I'll ask another one. What is the situation with Kanye? I don't see Charlie wearing the new Yeezy 700s. What's your current relationship with him?
He has them still. Look, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Kanye needed a break from politics. You can't do politics halfway. Kanye's a great person. I'm like, you're never going to hear me ever utter a bad word about him. He moved the conversation further in Black America with a couple of tweets, and it's been moved in the last 60 years. The amount of courage that it takes to be a black man in Hollywood, to put on a MAGA hat, to go to the White House, to hug the president, to do a pro-Trump celebratory performance on Saturday Night Live, the most liberal-infested show that we have on TV, okay? He has done enough. People want more. I don't get it. What more do you want from Kanye? He has a family. He has a baby on the way. And the amount of threats and the volatility that the media that launched towards him because he said he loved the president, it was great. Because now when I go around and I talk to Black America about what I call social lynchings, which is what happens to black people, the media lynches us. It's an updated technique. They can no longer hang us from trees, but they did it to Clarence Thomas. They did it to Dr. Ben Carson. When Dr. Condoleezza Rice was working under Bush, they did it to her. The media will literally hang us out to dry and try to destroy our lives simply for being black, for being conservative, and having the audacity to think for ourselves. What Kanye West went through was so public and so painful, and the second he said, never mind, I'm done with politics, they left him alone. They no longer called him crazy. It is the greatest example of how much the media lies, how vicious the media is, and how pointedly racist the leftist media is against black Americans. So we honor Kanye, and if he wants to come back into politics, he's still pro-Trump. He said Trump all day. He will always have a platform with us, and he will always be considered a friend. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so thanks, guys. That was a terrific answer from everyone. Thanks to all the panelists. There's going to be some time for Charlie and Candace to get pictures with you guys. Ollie, are we doing that to the left or over there? Okay, over there. Sorry, to the right. Of course, to the right. And I think it's been an enormous success for the inaugural live event of Turning Point UK. I will say this, that if you want to support us, we are not funded by dark money. And the Guardian journalist who asked that ducked out after my answer, so I guess he didn't feel very comfortable. So if you do want to get involved, please just come and speak to somebody either on the panel or myself or Ollie, who's at the back of the room. And we need as much help as we can get. We've got Nottingham on Tuesday and then Brighton on Wednesday, which is going to be the fun one because Antifa are all over it. So good. Thanks very much, guys. Let's give it a round of applause for our panelists.